Welcome back to One Man's Tracks, and with this upcoming Thursday's review being an orthodox black metal album, the first one I've ever really stumbled across, I figured I'd take a minute, go to the totally other side of the spectrum of music, jump back into a subject I touched upon last spring in a little compare, contrast, double review that I did where I went from one really crappy Christian music album to one pretty rock and Christian metal album that Layaway Plan is right somewhere around here. Where'd you go? Right there. This album, I think it's a lot of fun, so that's worth checking out. I've got it up there if you want to click, but today I'm going through 5 Christian albums that really are, for the most part, aren't that bad, and I don't dislike. They just don't connect with me in the way that these albums here do. So once again, they're going back to the thrift shop where Goodwill dumping Christian music style. First up, we've got the queen of Christian music, the best-selling Christian album ever. This is the 5 times platinum Heart in Motion. Coming out in 1991, Amy Grant is the biggest Christian artist ever. I believe she's spent over 300 weeks on the charts. Just an obscene amount of music she's put out, and just a contribution to the genre that can't go unnoticed. But she's unfortunately not for me, I guess. I've listened to her very best-selling album, and I kind of like the first half almost. I'm just not the intended audience for this, unfortunately, as solid as this album is. Notable tracks, though. Let's listen to a few of them before we toss this away. You've got the opener, Good For Me, those 80s synths, uplifting feelings, the massive hit, Baby Baby, followed by Every Heartbeat, which I personally think is even better than that massive single. It's catchier, it bumps along really well. Ask Me's along the similar vein. Before that, you've got the slow builder, That's What Love Is For, just a classic early 90s building, feel good energy. And I guess I'd be amiss not to mention the track Hats, which is kind of like a not good rock lobster. The rest just don't do it for me. They don't connect with me. They just kind of pleasant whatevers, and I'm not collecting pleasant whatevers, but somebody will appreciate this album. I'm sure they'll be like, oh, I used to listen to that back in the 90s. I love that. I'll grab it for a nostalgic trip. But for me, 30 years down the line, it's not my taste. Let's move on to another pretty technically solid project. This is DC Talk's 5th and at this point final project, coming out in 1998, Supernatural, another really popular Christian group that actually started out as a Christian rap group from what I read. I haven't been able to check out any of the other work because I've been busy, and this album kind of had to be processed itself. It's far more on the spectrum of radio-friendly mainstream music that doesn't even tread too far on the preachier side of things, but you do get further on into the track list, and for the most part in a lot of these records, that's when Jesus really starts to creep on in. Technically solid, like I said, thematically not my cup of tea, but we're going to jump through a few of the tracks that I think are worth checking out, and if you do find these interesting, you really might enjoy this whole project. So, starting out, you've got a little cool atmospheric intro that leads really nicely into the opener, and probably my favorite track on the album, It's Killing Me. It's kind of a rockin', almost emo pop rock vibe. They certainly delve more into that emotional side of things as this thing progresses. You get Consume Me, which is another kind of emotional melodramatic tune. My Friend So Long kind of sticks into that emo pop vein. Fearless is a decent track. Besides that, the title track, it can be some fun. It's probably the most intense that this album gets. Otherwise, though, it doesn't feel that cohesive as a project. More of a individual songs that you could fit into the background of some movie. So nothing too out there or too much to grab your attention. Really pleasant background stuff kind of along that end of the Amy Grant lines, but yeah, it's not what I come for, so it's gonna go back to the thrift shop, and hopefully this neat little cover can grab someone else's attention. Jumping ahead about a decade in time and shifting from Virginia over to Ohio with the boys from House of Heroes. This is their third album, The End Is Not the End. It's my favorite album that I'm going to be talking about today. It just sits on the fence in terms of an album that I would hold on to and listen to again. All this Christian music, though, it lacks some certain sharpness and edge is missing from it all. Maybe it's just a lack of narcissism that you normally get in a pop star that can make their performances a little bit more believable. I'm not sure, but this album is crisp, cleanly produced, emotional, anthemic pop rock that I think most people could really get into. If you're going to check out any of these albums, this would be my number one pick. You've got a similar opening to that DC Talk album with the intro that flows really nicely into the opening track. This one's called If, and it's so grandiose. I just think it's a good opener. Some string sections really flow you into it. Altogether, the performances here are super clean. This emo pop hit just kind of reminds me of Reliant K, I guess. I never really got into them either, but I sort of can feel a faint memory of that. Then you're into Lose Control, that's got some super high energy, commanding guitar riffs. Then not until about Codename Raven, the 7th track, do you get another emotional banger. Journey into Space Part 1 and Sooner or Later are decent catchy cuts. Babies Are Red is kind of okay. It's not quite as catchy as those two, but still a bit of a bop. Faces is probably the last track I'd recommend. It's pretty repetitive, but fun nonetheless. Overall, though, I want to like this. I want to be able to listen to it over and over again and let it grow on me and get better connections with it, but I just feel that there's a layer there that I'm missing and I just don't connect with. I was raised Christian but don't really feel much belief or pull towards that. I guess I wouldn't be agnostic or atheist. I'm having a crisis of faith here, guys, but I know I believe in music and I know the emotions that it makes me feel. I have to stay true to, and these guys just don't cut it for me as much as I want them to. So thrift shop, somebody better pick this up and enjoy it, because it's a good record. I know I keep repeating myself, but I wouldn't talk about these projects if I didn't think they were at least solid. These albums all have some ground to stand on, some emotional weight and some instrumental skill, some production notability, so they all have pieces of them that are worth talking about. So I'm not just going to talk about whatever stuff I pick up. I gotta find something that has something behind it. Here's a project that's a little closer to home. This is, I think, the first Manitoban project that I've reviewed. Maybe. This is rapper Fresh IE, his 7th project. This is the Warren Project. I keep saying project. We're going to change it to LP from now on. This LP is tragically about suicide, and Warren is a cousin of Fresh IE's who took his own life. The whole thing opens up with, might be his mom telling a really sad tale of just what he went through, and what she would have wanted him to hear would be something along these lines before he decided to make that decision. So you get that heavy opener, and then you're hit with some really dope rapping on the track Live On. Probably my favorite track on the project. Ooh, I said project again. I can't get it out of my head. It's in the name and I keep seeing it and reading it. Either way, instrumental, classic sounding, early 90s rap beat. Chorus is a little bit busy, but I think it's trying to convey that feeling of struggle and just kind of too much sound busyness that goes on in the brain. It's also got a ton of break beats that are just tragic. They've got these emotional pulling instrumentals on them, and generally a spoken word of some sort, either telling a story or just making you feel so sad. It's a sad rap album, guys. And when I do go through a project and want to review it, I try to put myself in the perspective that would allow myself to receive the message. And so this just was, as much as I'm not going to keep it and I don't think it's amazing, I'm still just hit by the heaviness of it and the weight of the themes just make me just sad. I don't need that. And there's something, maybe just a lack of charisma in the guest performances and lack of cohesiveness with all the guests starting to come in near the middle to end. Like, Fresh IE sticks with it with One More Day, sort of a more throwbacky R&B flavor, another decent track. You got MC1, the guest rapper, with I Am Sorry, good themes, decent rapping, probably his best appearance. Wayne Lavalley comes out with a sort of tonic-like guitar radio song that gives you a breath of fresh air in the middle. It's called Breathe, so appropriate. The Child I Was and Endless are female vocalists that do a pretty notable job. They create these catchy little cuts and once again sad sort of pop R&B flavor on those. You've got Crystal, which kind of feels like Sir Mix-a-Lot's I'm Your New God, which is about cocaine. This one's about crystal meth and its effects. It's okay. It wasn't as compelling as the Mac is Back, but still a decent track. I don't know. I feel at the end of the day that as much as I want people to check this out, I don't want it to sit in my collection and just not be listened to. So there, somebody else gets that emotional sad rap ride. I guess one final complaint I have about that project is a lot of the performances do feel fairly derivative and leaning on their influences, and the lack of charisma and originality might stem from that. Either way, check out the project. I've done what I can to promote it myself. Check out those links in the description, and let's get into the final album that is a bit of a joke, if you ask me. This is a prophetic warfare worship album from Rickpino. This is Weapons of Warfare. It's his first album as far as I can tell. It's got prayer segments, it's got spontaneous moments, it's got those mashed together into one song. He's this charismatic preacher who has a really talented improvisational rock group that goes from these harder, intense anthems to soft, pleasant rock songs, sort of free-flowing. The production is surprisingly impressive, but holy moly, is this album hard to take seriously, especially with the bit of crowd extra bits that he goes back and forth with them shouting out, and the little tongue segments. It's hilarious. I just had to check it out because look at that cover. The back is just, I don't know, this thing is out there and I don't recommend you picking it up, and I'm sending it back. I just thought if you're in for a fun little trip, he does have this on YouTube, so it's linked down below as well. Check out Rickpino, and especially check out any of those other projects and let me know what you think. These albums here, I think they've got some noteworthy tracks. Check them out in the description there. Let me know with a comment what you think about Christian music, or if you think I'm making a mistake tossing these albums back to the thrift shop. Check yours, make sure it's not there for you to pick up before you get upset at me for it. Take good care. Here's some more videos. Subscribe, like the thing, do all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Praise the Lord.